Hello, my name is Margarita Maria Foltz, and the title of this presentation is Code Switching Embedded in Organizational Meritocracy, Unpacking Biases and Barriers to an Inclusive Organization. In this presentation, I plan to provide explanations and reasons for code switching, as well as weigh the pros and cons of doing so at the expense of not showing up in the workplace as your authentic self. I will also briefly discuss the challenges implicit biases and stereotypes pose for individuals of diverse attributes and how this may present as unreliable results in performance evaluations and opportunities for advancement. One approach to workplace survival and getting along is code switching. Code switching is context and environment driven. When we are at home, hopefully our guard is down and we can be our most authentic selves without any pretentious dress, behavior, language, or mannerisms. However, when we are outside our homes, we may change the way we act, dress, speak, as well as our mannerisms to align with others or to blend into a specific context. It requires self-awareness as well as emotional intelligence. This is what code switching entails. As much as possible, being like a chameleon to fit in to change how we come across to a majority group or culture. For most of us, unlike the chameleon, we cannot easily change our color. Often, the heavy lifting of code switching is put upon the minoritized race or identity. It is not unusual for people of color to bear the burden of code switching. The main culprit is that Black, Indigenous, or people of color do not fit the appearance, language, or social norms established by the majority groups leading many Western organizations. In other words, in a non-inclusive organization, it is highly likely white males have set the norms and expectations that everyone else is required to follow suit in order to fit in. Norms for professionalism, belonging, inclusion, performance, and advancement. This requires Black, Indigenous, or people of color to break the code and switch their social norms to fit in with the norms and expectations of the majority group in power and or leadership. Let's talk about implicit biases and stereotypes. In some organizations, women and non-binary or non-conforming individuals must subscribe to white male majority social norms or expectations too. And the unique issue is it's not always the white male perpetuating these biases or stereotypes. Which person is the modern art curator? Let's take a look. We may guess using our socialized visual cues and pick the Black person wearing the colorful kimono. But in order to do this, we have to make many assumptions about what an art curator's appearance looks like. Now we're looking for another identity. Which person is the Latina finance manager? What if hypothetically they were the third person on the slide? When by appearance, many people would select the person in the center of the slide based on their socialized biases and stereotypes of what a Latina looks like and how a finance manager dresses, based on skin color, hair texture, and even mannerisms shown in the photo. No one is exempt from buying into socialized norms. Now let's try to guess who is the administrative support professional. Since there is only one person left to deductively reason, we should say that they are the person featured on the left. As we stated, the person on the far right is the Latina finance manager, and the person in the center was the modern art curator. But there are still folks in organizations who would choose the black woman who is featured far right, as she is wearing open-toe shoes and fitted slacks, which in some contexts at work would be deemed unprofessional for a finance manager. And some could not see past her color to appreciate that she is of Latin descent. For certain, we cannot tell by looking who's whom, as we very well shouldn't. It is conventional wisdom and socially responsible to create organizational cultures in which multiple perspectives, thought, races, gender identities, abilities, and intelligence are appreciated, included, and provided with opportunities for advancement. Unfortunately, there are consequences to pay for not code switching that result in being left out, being stuck in entry-level roles, and not being compensated in a manner consistent with key performance indicators within the organization. The other consequence minority folks experience is not getting the recognition and promotions when they do not open up and build professional relationships and mentoring relationships and let their guard down at work. It is unfortunate and even extreme that some organizations perpetuate a toxic culture in which minoritized and marginalized individuals will never be promoted if change management strategies for inclusive hiring, retention, and advancement were not implemented. Sustainable and ideal meritocracies exist in organizations and groups where diversity and inclusion are welcomed and formalized in the recruitment, hiring, onboarding, training, and development and performance evaluation processes. Opportunities for recognition, pay, and promotions must be as easily accessible by people of diverse backgrounds as the majority group. Each element of group interaction and engagement must be equitable for all organizational members, whether they are Black, Indigenous, or a person of color, or a woman, or a non-conforming gender identity, a person with a disability, or any other attribute not found in the majority group in leadership. In other words, access to professional development, equitable pay, and advancement should be no different for minoritized people than members of the majority group. This is what an inclusive workplace looks like, with people around the table of different ages, ethnic backgrounds, neurodiversity, races, religions, and different representations of intersectionality. What you cannot see are the performance evaluation results that demonstrated teamwork, collaboration, cooperation, and culturally appreciative and affirming work culture, in which, as a Black woman, I was as respected wearing natural hair as I was wearing straight hair, and members were not discounted on their performance evaluations if they were not a neurotypical, physically fit, straight, white male whose first language was English. Code switching will not go away and likely should not, with the exception of those case scenarios when code switching is the cost of mental stability, self-worth, it's hurtful or harmful, or diminishes a person's or a minoritized group's cultural identity. Code switching should not cause a person to lose themselves or become someone in identity crisis just to be included. People should be able to belong to organizations without ever losing themselves. Again, this has been Margarita Maria Foltz, and I thank you for your time.